And good evening. Welcome to Dave's Tacklebox on Vapor Trails TV. It is Sunday, the 1st of February 2015. Got loads of stuff to get through tonight, so we'd better get started. Right, so like I say, we've got a lot to squeeze in tonight. We're going to do well to keep this to the 60 minutes, I think. Later on in the show, I will be having a look at this product, which is the V Spark from one of Vapor Trails TV's sponsors. Advertisers, should I say, sparksecigs.co.uk. It's a variable voltage jobby. It's well worth having a look at. We've got a review of that, and then there's a competition, and I'll be giving you details on how you can get your hands on one of 5 of these that they're kindly giving away to VTTV viewers, so that's good. Also, should time allow, I'll be looking at a policy document or an advice document published by the Health and Safety Executive for England, if we've got time. But if I don't get to do that, I will definitely come back to it next week because it's good. But what I want to start with tonight is just to recognise the fact that in the last week, certainly in the last 2 weeks since the last episode of Dave's Tacklebox, there have been some strange results of studies released on e-cigs. I'm sure everybody that hasn't had their head in the sand will have noticed studies on formaldehyde, and the Daily Mirror ran a piece the other day suggesting that there's a study that suggests that e-cigarettes may even be more harmful and more dangerous than traditional tobacco cigarettes. Obviously all of this stuff can be debunked, but what I've done tonight is I've picked out a couple of bits of coverage, primarily American coverage, from the Huffington Post and from Fox News, where actually, and very refreshingly, they've had a bit more of a balanced debate, and some of that stuff has been confronted. Some of these facts that Glantz and his cronies are, perpetuating. And I'm going to play them through. The first video I'm going to show you, it's actually 20 minutes long, and it came from the Huffington Post. But I think it's worth actually running the whole thing through from beginning to end, simply because, one, it is a balanced piece. It's not a hatchet job by either the pro e-cig brigade or the ants. And I think it actually kind of just shows where we're at. But the main thing I like about it is there's some pretty frank discussion, and they touch on the Californian Health Department and the sort of noise they've been making about e-cigs being dangerous and you shouldn't touch them and all that kind of stuff. So, like I say, we're short on time, so without further ado, I'll run the first of 2 VTs. The first one's 20 minutes, the second one's very short. Let's get the big one running, and see what you think of this.
You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red. When electronic cigarettes first hit the market, they were billed as a safer alternative to smoking. But as the popularity of vaping has grown, advocates across the U.S. are now taking a deeper look into the risks and calling for regulation. California is just the latest state to declare e-cigarettes a health threat, and they seek laws as strict as those in place for tobacco products. Joining us now to discuss the dangers of e-cigs and the right way to regulate them, we have Christian Warren, an associate professor of history at Brooklyn College, Julie Wessner, the executive director of the Consumer Advocates for Smoke-Free Alternatives Association, and Dr. Michael Seigel, a professor of community health sciences at the Boston University School of Public Health. Dr. Seigel, let's start with you. Do you think California is on the right track when it comes to tracking e-cigarettes and making sure they're on the up and up?
Well, I think yes and no. I think that what California is doing in terms of regulating the products makes sense, trying to keep the products out of the hands of children who we don't want to be using them. But what I don't think is on the up and up with California is the fact that in their documents that are on their website, they're actually lying to the public about the hazards of electronic cigarettes. I think they're mischaracterizing the science. For example, they basically tell consumers that electronic cigarettes are more addictive than tobacco cigarettes. They tell consumers that there's no evidence that these products can help people quit smoking or cut down on smoking. And they tell people that that kids are becoming addicted and going on to smoke cigarettes. And there's no evidence for any of these claims. And so I think that their motivations are good, their intentions are good, but unfortunately, I think we don't in public health, we don't lie to the public to try to get our business done. And I think that needs to be corrected.
So, Dr. Seigel, you're suggesting that they have no studies to back this up, not even any polls or statistics or any sort of thing that we would normally see with statements and claims such as this?
Well, for example, in the report that just came out today, the Department of Public Health claimed that there's no evidence that electronic cigarettes help people to quit. And they cited one study which was actually not even looking at that issue. And they failed to cite 3 different clinical trials which have been published, all of which show that these products are somewhat helpful in helping people to quit smoking. So the kind of cherry picking of studies that we're seeing in this report is reminiscent of what the tobacco industry used to do in the past. And in public health, we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I don't think we should be lying to the public. I don't think we should be misleading them in order to try to overhype the dangers of this product. There's no question that we don't want youth using the product. On the other hand, these products are much safer than cigarettes, and they're truly a lifesaver to people who are able to switch to them, smokers who are able to switch to them. These products are saving thousands of people's lives, literally.
Let's talk about that. I want to bring in some of our community members who get really lit up about this subject. We have Ed W. He says e-cigarettes are way safer than smoking. Joe says, LOL, everything is safer than analogs. Analogs meaning traditional old-fashioned cigarettes. Julie, weigh in here.
Well, I agree with everything that Dr. Seigel is saying. These are an extraordinarily less harmful alternative than smoking, and the public health community, specifically in California, is lying to consumers. And from the consumer standpoint, what we want is the truth. There's nobody who's got a greater interest in this than we do. We're the ones using these products. We don't want puffery, either pro or con. We just simply want to know the truth. And the California Department of Public Health is not doing that. And what's making it even more awful is they're doing it on the back of taxpayer dollars. So we're paying for this misinformation campaign. And Michael's exactly correct when he says people are quitting smoking using e-cigarettes. I'm a perfect example. I'm getting ready to come up on 6 years now smoke-free, and I was a 30-plus year smoker, more than 2 packs a day. So they're just not being honest. They've got an agenda, and it's really not about public health at this point.
It's interesting that you say that because we have a few audience members who are also saying something similar. We have right here, Malice, it is for the children, my children, and grandchildren who deserve to have me around longer because I no longer smoke. We also have Charles, 27 days without cigarettes here. I'd like them to tell me to my face that e-cigarettes haven't helped. Christian, I want to bring you into this conversation because you don't necessarily think this is such a zero-sum game. There can be problems with e-cigarettes, in your opinion.
Well, the problem, of course, is that e-cigarettes are a potentially very, very effective device for keeping people addicted. Truly, they can help people get off of cigarettes, which is wonderful. But there's two things that they permit. One is an image of safety, which has always been the tobacco industry's dodge to pretend to make safer cigarette products. This, of course, is a very different product. We're not talking about inhaling vaporized tobacco products, which are clear carcinogens. So, to me, the concern is twofold. It enables an ongoing addiction problem. People are still tied to a tobacco industry product or to a drug delivery product for nicotine. But it's also I hate to use the word gateway drug, but the cigarette industry relies on the ongoing appeal of the cigarette form factor, the little coffin nail, to attract young smokers, replacement smokers for tobacco products, and in the fact that e-cigarettes are reversing the social stigma that has been put on smoking in public, the legal restrictions that have come down in terms of where people can smoke, the e-cigarette wipes out some of that problem. And so I think that if we destigmatize the e-cigarette, if it becomes even more attractive to youth smokers, that it makes fuzzy the line between tobacco and e-cigarettes in a population that is not hardwired for the kind of risk assessment that maybe adults are.
It's an interesting point. Dr. Siegel, weigh in there, because here's the thing. Currently, e-cigarettes are at one point, it's almost a $2 billion industry right now, and it's posited to grow. So in the same way, we have great stories like the ones we've just heard, and we have Alex right here who has this piece, an estimated 10K smokers saved already. There is the opposite side, the fact that kids can vape and not have to worry about mom and dad smelling smoke on their clothes, or you can smoke everywhere now versus having to go outside in the cold to get your hit.
Well, I think that the concern is certainly a reasonable one, but fortunately the evidence tells us that this is not becoming a problem. The real concern is what Professor Warren mentioned, is that if this were a gateway drug, it would be a huge problem. If kids were using electronic cigarettes, becoming addicted, and then going on to smoke regular cigarettes, it would be a disaster. But the data show that that's just not happening. So far, there have been 2 studies that have looked at the issue, and basically they haven't been able to find more than 1 or 2 youth who started with electronic cigarettes and progressed to smoking. Most of the kids who are trying these products are kids who either started smoking, who have already started smoking and they're trying the e-cig, or who would have started smoking anyway. And so in a way, it's diverting a lot of kids away from tobacco smoking and into vaping instead. Now, obviously, we don't think any kids should be vaping, and I would fully support our regulations and education campaigns to make sure that doesn't happen. But the reality is, right now, that this is not a gateway drug, and that concern, while it makes sense, is not one that's being borne out by the science.
Would you argue that even though you say that the information that's being expressed now, saying how dangerous e-cigarettes is overblown, it's not without risk? Or do you consider an e-cigarette to be without risk?
Well, there's no question that there are risks associated with it. We certainly would never want someone who has never smoked to suddenly pick up an e-cigarette and start using it. Nicotine is harmful in and of itself. And so these are products specifically designed for smokers who are concerned about their health and to try to help them. Many of them have been unsuccessful with other therapies that are out there, like nicotine replacement therapy, and for many thousands of smokers who have failed with other methods, the e-cigarette has turned out to be an absolute lifesaver. So absolutely, this is a product that should only be used by smokers who are trying to quit and who are trying to literally save their lives.
But Julie, here's the thing, 100% agree. But do you think this is how this product is going to be used? Let's say 5-10 years down the road, as the e-cigarette becomes even more and more of a part of our general society, do you think it's going to be used as a gateway to completely weaning off, or do you think it just might be the first step?
Well, I think when I hear the word gateway, I kind of step back a second, because e-cigarettes are a gateway, but so far it's been a one-way gate, and that's been away from smoking and to something less harmful. As for the future, I expect that e-cigarette use will continue to grow among the smoking adult population, as well it should. It's an acceptable alternative, and we're seeing millions of people exploring this alternative. I would say, though, that I'm a little disappointed to hear the comment about this image of safety and this perpetuation of, I guess it's normalization of smoking. And I would submit to you that increased public use of e-cigarettes is not normalizing smoking. It's actually normalizing a less harmful alternative to smoking. To the extent that it would normalize smoking, that'd only really be because people are confused. And organizations such as, the American Lung Association, I'm not even going to go there, but the California Department of Health, to the extent that they're out there suggesting that the risk profile of e-cigarettes is comparable to smoking and people don't see any distinction, then yes, perhaps it will normalize smoking. And that, I think they're creating the own world, the exact world that they're afraid of. They're actually trying to create it, and it's rather silly.
It's been a blizzard, really. It's come so quickly, so fast, and there have been. It reminds me kind of like there was this extreme diet pill that worked so wonderfully in the 70s, and people were just like, this is a great diet pill, it's going to get you in shape. Only later did they find out the extreme negative effects of the heart palpitations. Some people died. So it did cure the problem of an individual not being able to lose weight, but it had repercussions that were only found out later on. Same thing with pills that help with morning sickness, with pregnancy, and other things that just have been untested. Now, you mentioned earlier that some of these studies or some of these statements have been made without backing study proof. There was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine last week that found that running an e-cig device at high voltage releases formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen that's found in conventional cigarettes. And the authors actually deduced that a heavy user of vaporizers at high voltage was 5 to 15 more times more likely to get cancer than a long-time cigarette smoker. So we're seeing in some circumstances, when looking at data in specific ways, that while in many ways the e-cigarette can be less harmful than an actual traditional cigarette, there are ways that we might be finding out it could be worse.
Well, if I could just jump in, Nancy, the study that you referred to was actually severely flawed, because it turns out that what they did they used a low voltage and a high voltage condition. Under the low voltage condition, there was no formaldehyde produced. Under the high voltage condition, it turns out what they ended up doing was a completely unrealistic scenario in which they essentially burned the coil of the electronic cigarette, and they created a situation that no vapor would ever tolerate. It creates an extreme. It's called a dry puff phenomenon, and basically it creates an extremely distasteful feeling that no vapor would ever tolerate. We've looked at the range of voltages that vapors use and the temperatures that they typically use, and they're way below the temperature that was tested in that study. The authors have subsequently retracted their statement that cigarette smoking is just that vaping is just as harmful or more harmful than cigarette smoking. So it's just another example of how careful you have to be with the data and the propaganda that is out there. And I have to agree with Julian saying that the folks who are really creating the image of safety for cigarettes are not the e-cigarette companies, it's the public health folks. Because what the public health folks are telling us is, look how dangerous these products are. Look how dangerous e-cigarettes are. They should be classified in the same way as cigarettes. The Department of Public Health just today in California said they should be treated like cigarettes. And that's what's creating the problem with the image of safety, because what that's basically telling the public is e-cigarettes are the same as cigarettes. They have the same safety profile. And because e-cigarettes are so basically benign, this is going to lead the public to believe that cigarette smoking isn't as bad as it has been made out to be.
So in this conversation, would you consider, in painting this picture, and for people trying to get their heads around it, for whom it's not a day-to-day issue, in the same way methadone is to a heroin addict, methadone is not without some fault, but it's way better than heroin. Dr. Siegel, would an e-cigarette be the methadone for a cigarette smoker?
Well, that is a good analogy in that Professor Warren mentioned one of the concerns is that you're just perpetuating addiction when somebody switches from a cigarette to an e-cigarette. But there's two problems with that argument. The first is that, yes, they may still be addicted to nicotine, but they're a lot safer, and they're not going to die because of it. In fact, they've probably just saved their life. So if meaning that you're addicted to nicotine means that you've saved your life, then I would argue that's a good thing, and that person is to be congratulated. But the other thing, and perhaps most importantly, is what you mentioned, which is that if we made the same argument against methadone, we would basically say, look, methadone is just as addictive as heroin. And if you switch from heroin to methadone, you're still addicted. You're not going to get off. You're just as addicted, maybe even more addicted to methadone than to heroin. And if we use that argument, we would have thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are still on the streets, still committing crimes, still injecting, still spreading AIDS, still getting severe infections and dying of overdoses left and right. And from a public health perspective, that's not an appropriate answer to this problem. In an ideal world, if people were able to quit smoking by just snapping their fingers, then yes, I would say we should really tell people you've got to either quit or die. But unfortunately, the reality is it's incredibly hard to quit. 97% of people who try to quit every year fail. And to tell those people, we don't want you using a safer alternative because you're still going to be addicted, makes absolutely no sense.
And let me jump in if I may. So if we're talking about, we're not talking about preventing addiction, which is one thing I would like to make sure we are addressing. And I know whenever you talk about any kind of bad habit, as we're talking about, you get to the social productivity question. What is the socially productive value of vaping? I don't think anybody here would say there is any. So there's a question of whether how benign it is to come up with a new product that is potentially as appealing. We haven't gotten to the manipulation of appeal, but it is potentially as appealing. And it is addicting. The only beneficiary of this is the manufacturers of the nicotine product. We talked about analogies. I was unfortunately brought in the gateway. So I'm not sure what the new analogy is going to be. It was easy to say that cigarettes are to tobacco as crack is to coca, but I don't know what the new analogy is for vaping.
Well, one thing's for sure, it's going to be very nuanced, and we'll see this continue to evolve. Julie, I read this comment and thought you'd have something good to say on it. Lynn McCurdy says, 4 years smoke-free after 38 years of at least a pack a day. My 15-year-old cousin recently asked me about vaping zero nic, grape-flavored quote-unquote juice. My response to him was, don't start a bad habit. Privately, I'd rather see him start vaping zero nic juice than start smoking. But is it an either or? Do you see do you see teenagers saying, "Hey, I'm doing something cool with no nicotine, no health hazards," than doing both or vaping from the beginning with nicotine?
Well, look, I'm a mother. I've got 2 children, and I don't want them smoking. They're now adults. They're not smokers. They're not vapors. But if they were to use nicotine, let's be honest, I'd rather them vape than smoke. And, honestly, though, I'd rather them use nothing. I'd rather them not use the nicotine. But, I did want to bring up one point. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the discussion of addiction. I think that it's not really terribly productive, and I think that it kind of ignores the real issue. And the real issue is that many smokers will continue to smoke because of the nicotine, but it's not the nicotine that's causing the whole host of smoking-related problems. That's caused by lighting something on fire and inhaling the products of combustion. And with all due respect, I don't know why anybody's concern about my addiction or habit should be more compelling than my concern about using the cleanest form of nicotine available. So I just don't think this addiction discussion is particularly productive, and we see people continuously reducing their dependence. And I prefer to think of this more of a dependence issue. I'm using a lot less nicotine now 6 years later than I did in the beginning, and it's not deliberate, it's just happened. We're finding that the profile of use is different for e-cigarettes than smoking over time. And I would encourage those from public health to reach out to those who have been vaping for a significant period of time and actually get some information that's not in the ivory towers.
Well, one thing's for sure, as we get more data and more information, we can have more conversations, and I welcome you all back for that. Now, everyone watching and commenting, you can read more about e-cigarettes and the calls for regulation on them and more information on them in general by clicking on the links in our resource well below. You can also find more information about our esteemed guest. And stay tuned because the conversation always continues here at HuffPost Live.
And there you go. I don't know about you guys, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. I do like listening to Professor Siegel, and it is Siegel, not Seigel, because I've heard him pronounce his own name, it is Siegel. And Julie Wisner there from Kazaa. Those guys have been around, longer than I have on the vaping scene, and have been very strong advocates. And as you can see, they're putting together reasoned, sensible arguments, and it's always the best way to go. The presenter, the HuffPost presenter, I thought did as well as she could as well. I mean, normally her job is to try and play devil's advocate, isn't it? But she needed to really a supply of an argument from the anti-guy there, what's his name, Christian Warren. But he gave her nothing to work with, did he? So I thought she did quite well at trying to keep the debate going there, because he, to be honest with you, he probably did vaping more as a cause, more good than harm, I thought. It was as though he got a set of preconceived ideas, maybe a script or something, but every time that he hadn't got the answer there, he couldn't figure it out, talking about destigmatising them being a bad idea. I mean, come on. Anyway, so I thought that was well worth a watch anyway. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was very good for the vaping point of view, the vapors' point of view. I've got another very short video to show you now, which is kind of along the same lines. This went out on Fox News the other day. It was the 29th or the 30th of January it went out. And this is a guy called Greg Gutfeld, who we've featured before on Vapor Trials TV. He's a vapor. He appears often on a Fox News thing called The Five. So it might go out at 5 o'clock or something, I don't know. But anyway, this is what he's got to say on some of these things that have been, the California Health Department stuff and these formaldehyde studies and everything. This is Greg's take. Enjoy this.
So California may join other stupid states in harshly regulating e-cigs after a report claims they emit cancerous compounds and could get people addicted. But the report has more holes than a wine rack, as critics accuse the authors of cherry-picking studies to support their biased assumptions. I agree. Just poke the research slightly and watch what happens. Seriously, I've done better reports on Winnie the Pooh in second grade. This report has bigger gaps than a New Jersey shopping mall. So let's pull the arms and legs off this scarecrow. First, they claim there's no evidence that vaping helps people quit cigarettes. Wrong. There's a comprehensive review showing just that. You stupid fools. They say vaping contains potentially toxic chemicals, failing to mention the levels are 9 to 450 times lower than cigarettes. You idiot! They say vaping contains harmful metals, failing to note they're in lower amounts than permitted for other products. They claim nicotine is as addictive as cocaine. Please, that's idiotic. I know. Where do these idiots get their degree? At a ball pit at McDonald's? This report isn't just propaganda disguised as concern. It scares people away from effectively quitting real cigarettes, enabling more death. Faced with hopeful findings on vaping, they state the opposite, revealing the only toxic vapor in this report is their deadly hot air, wafting up like a foul flatulence by a gibbering idiot. I'm so angry. If this is science, then I'm Albert effing Einstein.
I was laughing. I sort of clicked the wrong thing there. Sorry about the little bit of darkness. Greg Gutfeld there, and I'm not normally a fan of that sort of style of reporting, but when somebody's like saying the things that you love to say to an audience like those guys have got, you know, you've got to love it, really, haven't you? So, but that's brilliant. You know, did they get their degrees in a ball pit at McDonald's? Fantastic. We need to take a break, or we're never going to get everything in. End of part one.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VapeTrails.tv.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
Right, we got to keep it moving along. Still got a lot to fit in, and we're more than halfway there. This is a thing called a V-Spark. It's a variable voltage device. I've done a review of it, which I'm going to play in a minute, and then after that, if you think you might fancy one for now, we're running a competition together with Sparks ecigs.co.uk, and they're putting 5 of these up for grabs for now. I'll give you the details on how to enter the competition after this review. Enjoy. Hi there, I'm Dave, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the V-Spark variable voltage kit from sparksecigs.co.uk. Okay, so with thanks to Sparks e-cigs for sending this along so I can review it for you guys. I'm just looking at the website description of what they've sent along. It's called the V-Spark, and it's listed on the website as the V-Spark variable voltage kit. Just read out some of the features. It's got a 3 volt to 6 volt variable voltage selection, a 1300 milliamp hour battery. It emphasises that simple plus and minus buttons. Simple's good, I like simple. The kit includes an EVOD BVC atomizer, so that'll be a Carto, and it is indeed an EVOD. The battery features a remaining voltage and atomizer resistance checker, because they don't all have that. I'll just read the headline of the product details. It says it's a variable voltage device offering the user a slim and sleek design. That's what it says. Yet with a range of 3 volts to 6 volts to satisfy the most discerning of vapors. I think the best thing to do is get it down on the table, get it open, and let's have a look at it. So the V-Spark kit comes in, what's become a customary sort of plastic box. Most of the e-cig kits I've bought recently have had this. It's sealed. I've already been in this one, but you will need to break that seal or peel it off or something to get inside, and that will reveal a cardboard sleeve. And I'll take the whole lot out because I want you to see what's in it. I've been in here once already. I've actually been using this a bit, but I haven't used the EVOD cartomizer yet. So you get an instruction manual, and right, I rarely read instruction manuals. I had to with this one. I'll explain why as we go along, but it's actually got everything you need to know in there. It's got a little diagram of all of the various parts of the e-cig, how to attach the cartomizer, some do's and don'ts, basically if I don't cover it in here, the leaflet's got your back. Quality control card. You get a USB charger, and always bear in mind, always try and use the charger that comes with the kit. They've made that a little bit easier to do because it's branded. You can see that it actually says on it Sparks e-cigarettes. So a lot of these chargers look alike when in actual fact the current they can handle aren't alike. So wherever possible, match the charger that came in the kit with the e-cig that you're charging. Things are going to be much safer that way. Here's our EVOD, BVC should I say. It's bottom vertical coil, not a bottom double coil or dual coil. It's a BVC EVOD, which is good because that's pretty much what I'm using continually at the moment, is BVCs in various devices. And then you've got the e-cig itself. Now, mine arrived pretty well charged and ready to go, but having just tested it to see if there was any juice in it, I then put it on charge by attaching it to the USB charger. Don't over tighten this or you can do damage to the charger or the e-cig. plug that into a USB outlet. I've got a powered USB hub that I use for charging everything. So this currently is fully charged, this one. Little light goes red while it's charging. Little LED that you might be able to make out on the camera there. It'll be red while it's charging. It goes green when it's finished. So you know it's done. Okay, let's get this thing up and running, and then I'll talk you through some of the features that it's got. So I'm going to start with the EVOD BVC cartomizer. If you're not familiar with these, you basically want to fill this up by tipping it so the mouthpiece is down, and screw off the entire bottom section. Inside here you can see your atomizer coil, which has got this long sort of knobbly bit so you can grip it. And you can see by looking down through the opening that you've made, there's a central tube. You don't want to put just down there, because as you can see my finger at the bottom. It'll all just come flying through. So the object of the exercise is to get your e-liquid between that center tube and the outer tube. I always use a bottle like this with my juice. Makes this actually pretty easy to do. There's a little sight glass on the side you can see there, which I'm going to turn towards me because I'm filling it up. And I'm going to fill the cartomizer up until it reaches sort of just below the central tube. Because if it goes any higher, it'll go down the central tube, and that's something we don't want. Once I've done that, I can screw the base back on. Make sure it's tight, but don't do it with a pair of pliers or anything, you know, just finger tight. And that's your cartomizer filled and ready to go. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's put it onto the device, and we'll have a look at some of the features. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning that I had to go back and read the instructions, because you know, I followed my normal sort of feet first approach of unpacking the thing, charging it, and then starting to use it. And I'm used to devices similar to this. Normally, to turn the power on and off, you have to press, this is actually turned on, so let me turn it off to show you what I mean. Normally you tap the fire button, as I call it. In the instructions here it calls it the activation button. It's the big button, the big main button. You normally tap that 3 or 5 times to turn the device on and off, and I was doing that for a while and then realised that ain't going to work. So that's when I went to the instructions and learned that to turn this one on and off, you take the minus button. Let's hold it a bit closer to the camera and you'll probably see the difference between the plus and the minus button there. To turn this one on, you press the minus button and hold it for 5 seconds, and it lights up, and you can see that this is currently set to 5.2 volts. To turn it off again, exactly the same. Press and hold the minus button for 5 seconds. That's done. Okay, but we're going to use it, so let's turn it on. To change your voltage couldn't really be simpler, plus and minus. So I want to take it up to 5, but let's start with a nice 4.5 volts, and I'm doing this in reverse in the camera, so now I'm going up there. Press the minus button until we're down to 4.5 volts, and I'm just going to check. There is a monitor on this camera, but it's very small. So that's currently set at 4.5 volts. That should just work. Let's have a quick test. As you see, that's basically working. So let's have a look at some of the other features. So it's plus and minus buttons to knock the voltage up or down in increments of 0.1 volt. If you want to see how much charge you've got left in your battery, you can press and hold the plus button for 3 seconds. And you can see there that's telling me there's 4.1 volts in this battery. Not to be confused with the voltage that I'm vaping at, which is 4.5. Hold that for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. 4.1 volts. Another quick vape. The other significant feature that this has got is the ability to check the resistance of your atomizer. Now, it took me a little bit of messing around basically to get the to understand how long to hold this button for, but basically the instructions say you press the activation or the fire button 3 times and it'll tell you the atomizer resistance. You can see if you do it quick, nothing happens, but you have to 1, 2, 3. And it won't work at all now. Hang on, there's a knack to this, but I can't get it to work now. You have to time it just so. But as you can see, that was telling me that the atomizer was 1.6 ohms, I believe. See if I can do it again. You've got to be a bit precise, as you can see. But like, if you persevere, it's there. And let's be honest, once you know what your resistance is, you pretty much know what your resistance is. So I'm not going to be get too upset about that. That's it. That's pretty much all the features. I'll just recap very quickly. Plus and minus to adjust your vaping voltage in increments of 0.1 volts. Press and hold the plus button for 3 seconds to see how much power is left in your battery, 4.1 volts. And how much voltage is left in your battery, I should say. And then yeah, there you go. So I'm getting better at it. 3 times at some duration and speed to get the atomizer resistance. That's pretty much all there is to know about the V-Spark variable voltage device. So, like I say, I've actually been using this with a different cartomizer on there because I wanted to film this one being filled out of the box, but I've actually been using the device for several days now. I'll get back to the other camera and we'll have a look and see how it vapes, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. As you can see, it produces plenty of vapour. The voltage that I select will have a bearing on that, as will the atomizer I put on it. I'm just swapping this for an Aspire Glassamizer thing, and I actually forget what model it is, but you know, it's a different brand. But just to prove, it's a 510 style, Ego style fitting on the end of it, so you can put pretty much anything with the 510 on there. And it'll work. You can even put non-Ego threaded stuff on it. So this is got a 510 connector. This is a silo tank mini, and as you can see, that works. Perhaps doesn't look quite as nice on the device there, but you know. I think the EVOD cartomizer that's supplied, or the Aspire BVC glassamizers, cartomizers, whatever they want to call them, all will work just fine on this. And you know, they've even sent a colour coordinated one in the kit. I actually think that looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's fairly long by necessity. It's a 1300 milliamp hour battery with variable voltage circuitry in it, so you know, there's a limit to how small you can make it. Should have pointed out when I did the close-up, really, there's venting in the bottom should your battery decide to have any issues. I've never had a device have any issues with the battery, but you know, it's a safety feature that I like to see there. All in all, I think it's a very capable, very, what's the word, competent variable voltage mod. And at £29.99 at the moment, I think it represents pretty good value for money, actually. Not much more I can add. It kind of just works. It does what it says on the tin. I will, just because of my OCD, persevere with the ohm selection thing. I did it first time, look. So it's obviously just a knack. A little bit of practice needed to get that to happen first time every time. But I would have to say, if you're thinking of trying variable voltage as a concept, this would be a perfectly good place to start. So that's pretty much everything I've got to say on the V-Sparks variable voltage kit. That's it. Thanks for watching. There you go, there's the V-Spark. There's the V-Spark. Right after this ad break, I'll give you details for competition run by Sparks ecigs.co.uk in conjunction with Vapor Trails TV, where they've got 5 of these up for grabs if you can answer a simple question. Be back straight after this to tell you how.
LP Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquids. Proud sponsors of vaping entertainment on Vapor Trails TV.
What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapour, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapour, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapour. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapour does not. And that vapour contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapour. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And welcome back. Right, okay. So if you are watching this live on Sunday the 1st of February at 21:54 GMT, which is what time it is now, you should see a link starting to appear in the chat below the embedded video, and that link will take you to sparksecigs.co.uk, who have very kindly put up 5 of these V-Spark variable voltage kits. What you get is you get the battery, you get an EVOD, and you get the charger, so you got everything you need. I was reading some of the comments in chat about the review and about the thing. This is a very, very competent variable voltage device. Some people were saying it reminds them a bit of the L-Rider Robust. No, it feels a lot more solid than that, and it's a lot smaller. It's a lot more compact. Height-wise, I'd say it's about the same, but diameter-wise, it's a lot sort of smaller than the Robust. It's got like the rubberized finish. It's nice. It's nice. I quite like it. So what you need to do is click the link that is appearing in the chat room right now. If you're watching this on catch-up via YouTube, then we'll make sure that the link to enter the competition is embedded in the description there and wherever else you might see this video. You've got until, get this, Friday the 13th of February. We're running the competition for 2 weeks, near as damn it. So we've got like another 12 days to enter from the time of saying this. We're going to close the entries at the end of Friday the 13th, and then we'll be announcing the winner on Dave's Tacklebox on Sunday the 15th of February, so that's 2 weeks tonight. It is a good device, but, you know, if you're like into mechanical mods and all the rest of it, enter the competition anyway, because we all know a new vapor who's thinking, what's this variable voltage like then? And tell you what, there's a lot worse ways to introduce yourself to variable voltage than one of these. Like I say, I've been using it. It's good. I like it. It works. So I'll do a little reminder next week of the competition and how you can enter it. But like I say, click the link. Takes you to a nice page. In fact, I can show you that page. Hang on, I can show you that because it's rather good actually. There it is. The link will take you to something that looks like this. There you go. And you have to you have to sign in with Facebook or Twitter or something, I think, and answer a question. And then you're in the draw. And 5 of yous will get a nice free variable voltage device for nout. No catch. It's good, isn't it? So there you go. And thank you very much to sparksecigs.co.uk for putting those prizes up and organising the competition. They've done everything for us, which is very good of them. Okay, I've got a couple of minutes left. I don't actually think I've got time to do justice to the HSE, Health and Safety Executive thing. So I won't bother. I'll park that for next week because it's something that I did want to have a look at. So just to wrap up tonight's show then, I guess, really. I thought the Huffington Post bit at the beginning with the debate with Michael Siegel and Julie Wisner and what's his name, Christian Warren. I thought it was a bit of a breath of fresh air, to be quite honest with you, because we do see these pieces. We saw the Daily Mirror piece, about, a study suggests that e-cigarettes are going to be more harmful than cigarettes, than traditional tobacco cigarettes and everything. And it was nice to see there, somebody who was obviously started off, he subscribed to that. You got the feeling with Warren, Professor Warren, Dr. Warren, whoever he was, the history professor from Brooklyn College, you got the feeling that he doesn't like e-cigs, but he wasn't exactly sure why, and he couldn't remember what Glantz told him, maybe. Should I say that? He seemed to forget what Glantz had told him halfway through, and he shot himself in the foot several times and handed so much ammo to Michael Siegel and Julie Wisner. So I think it's kind of nice. Because let's face it, individually and personally, we all think like Greg Gutfeld, don't we? But it's actually quite unusual to see something put over that forcefully. And those debates like the Huffington Post one, they're the ones that win the hearts and minds. They are. And so more of that, the better. But we have come to the end. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure you enter that competition. The link will be around. We'll keep posting the link in places. Anywhere you see this, you'll see the link by the time we've put it all in there and everything. Until next week, I'm going to bugger off. So until then, thanks for watching. Good night.